Welcome to Reinventing Broadcast, where AI meets content. Hosted by Ben Anchor. Let's dive in.
If you sat in a media studies class any time in the last 50 years, somewhere in the first week, you were handed a tidy little list, the mass media, and there were 5 of them: print, outdoor, cinema, radio and television. And broadcast media, the corner of it this podcast lives in, was the last 2 on that list, radio and television. One signal, sent from a tower, received by everyone at once. That list survived world wars, colour, satellite and cable. It felt permanent, like the periodic table. Then a 6th medium turned up, and we filed it under new media, as if it were a junior member waiting politely for its seat at the table. Online, social, the feed. Well, here is where we are in 2026. The junior member is not waiting for a seat, it is eating the table. In Britain, for the first time, fewer than half of 16 to 24-year-olds watch any broadcast television in a given week. 48%. 8 years ago, it was 76. And a colleague once said something to me that I have never been able to unhear. She said, "Ben, you do realise that to a lot of millennials, TikTok is broadcast, not a rival to broadcast, not new media. Just broadcast the thing that is on." So that is the question for this episode. What is broadcast now? Because I do not think it is what the list says it is.
Let me take that TikTok line seriously for a second, because it is either profound or sloppy and I cannot decide which. The whole point of the word broadcast is one signal to everyone. A schedule, a shared moment. TikTok is a private feed, assembled by an algorithm for an audience of one. So when your colleague says TikTok is broadcast, is she describing the world, or has the word just lost its meaning?
She is describing the world as the audience experiences it, and that is the only definition that has ever mattered commercially. To that viewer, broadcast was never the tower or the schedule. It was the experience of turning something on and being fed. Television did the choosing for you with a schedule. The feed does the choosing for you with an algorithm. From the sofa, those feel like the same service, and one of them is simply better at it. And before anyone dismisses this as a phone phenomenon, look at what has happened to the television set itself. The regulator's research this year found that when younger British viewers switch on the actual telly, the big screen in the living room, the first destination for many of them is YouTube. 16 to 24-year-olds watch around 33 minutes of broadcast television a day, only 20 of it live, against roughly an hour and a half on video sharing platforms. And in America, the measurement is even starker. YouTube on television sets crossed 13% of all viewing this spring, making it the single biggest distributor of television in the country, bigger than any network, bigger than Netflix. The set survived. Sitting down in front of the big screen survived. The thing that got swapped out was us.
Now, you did not just read about this transition in a regulator's report. You spent years inside the buildings while it happened. Take me onto the machine room floor, because I think the audience assumes this ambush arrived from outside the industry, and I suspect you are going to tell me you watched it walk in through the loading bay.
I did. And at the time we called it progress, which it was. The projects tell the story. Early in my career, a television facility was a physical thing you could walk through. Machine rooms full of racks, hardware everywhere, miles of cable under the floor, a transmission chain you could follow with your finger from the studio all the way to the aerial on the roof of a house. Then the projects started changing shape. First the boxes became software. The router that filled a rack became a license key. Then the software left the building entirely, and I found myself running cloud transformation projects, virtualizing the very hardware I had spent years installing, moving playout and processing into data centers we would never visit. At the same time, streaming and on-demand went from a side project run by 3 people to the thing the whole strategy meeting was about. And here is the part I clocked too slowly. Look at who we were buying it all from. The infrastructure stopped coming from the traditional broadcast vendors and started coming from Silicon Valley. The cloud was theirs. The platforms were theirs. The recommendation engines were theirs. We thought we were procuring suppliers. What was actually happening was that the technology companies were becoming the transmission chain. The tower on the hill got replaced by somebody else's data center. And once your distribution belongs to somebody else, the question of what broadcast is stops being philosophical and becomes commercial.
Which brings us to the people who understood that new transmission chain better than the broadcasters did. The creators, because the industry spent years laughing at them, one Swede in a bedroom at a time.
And the laughing has aged badly. The reference point back then was PewDiePie, one Swedish lad shouting at video games, and the industry verdict was noise, not television. He ended up with over 100 million subscribers. Today, the biggest creator in the world earns around $300 million a year, runs channels with more than 600 million subscribers, and licenses a format to one of the biggest streamers on the planet. That is a broadcaster by any definition, except the regulatory one. And the second comforting story fell with the first. We told ourselves the feed was for short attention spans, 30 seconds and gone, no threat to long form. Then podcasts moved into the living room. Around 1 billion people a month now watch podcasts on YouTube, hundreds of millions of hours of it on television sets, 2- and 3-hour conversations on the biggest screen in the house. The audience never lost the ability to watch long things. They lost the patience for our gatekeeping. And then there is the format that offends my engineering eye most and is making money fastest. Vertical micro drama. Serialized stories in episodes of 60 to 90 seconds. Shot for a phone held upright, projected to be worth somewhere between $11 and $14 billion globally by the end of this year. One studio alone shipped 400 series last year. British producers are quietly building vertical units right now. 16 by 9 was never sacred. It was a committee compromise, and the audience owes it no loyalty at all.
So the British broadcasters looked at all of that and chose their response, and I want to press you on it, because from the outside, it looks like surrender dressed as strategy. ITV is uploading full episodes of The Chase and its reality catalogue to YouTube. Channel 4 got there first and calls it a triumph. The BBC is following. Explain how handing your programmes to the platform that is eating you is anything other than feeding the crocodile and hoping to be eaten last.
It is the right question, and it is genuinely contested inside every one of those buildings. The case for goes like this. The broadcasters spent a decade trying to force viewers into their own walled garden apps, one login per channel, and the audience simply refused. You cannot make a 19-year-old download the ITVX app out of civic duty. So the channels concluded they must fish where the fish are, and the early numbers show those full episodes reaching viewers linear has not touched in years. The case against is exactly your crocodile. On your own channel, you own the relationship, the data, the advertising. On the platform, you are a tenant. The algorithm decides whether you get seen, and the audience relationship belongs to the feed. My honest read is that both are true. It is the rational move, and it is a retreat. The public service broadcasters are conceding that distribution, the thing the towers gave them, is no longer theirs, and betting that the content and the trust still are. Which brings us to the machine in the room, because you cannot talk about the feed without talking about what is pouring into it.
The synthetic flood. Give the audience the numbers, because if the algorithm is the new transmitter, then whoever feeds the algorithm best becomes the new broadcaster, and increasingly that is not a person at all.
The platform's own chief executive admitted this year that roughly 1 in 5 short videos recommended to a brand new user is mass-produced AI-generated content. Independent researchers found the same, about a fifth fully synthetic, and another third the repetitive engagement bait that has earned the nickname brain rot. One study found nearly 300 channels producing nothing but automated content, over 60 billion views between them, an estimated $100 million a year in advertising. Machines making content for an audience of algorithms, humans almost incidental to the transaction. The platform has been forced to respond, deleting the worst offenders, tuning recommendations back towards what it calls authenticity, automatically labelling suspected synthetic video, and connect that to the vertical drama boom, where studios talk openly about AI cutting production costs by up to 80%. The same technology sits on both sides of the line. With editorial judgment, it is a production tool. Without it, it is landfill. And for British broadcasters specifically, I think this is the opening. In a feed filling with anonymous synthetic content, an institution that can say a named human made this, checked this, and stands behind it, is suddenly holding something scarce.
Then make it Monday morning practical, and then I want your answer to the question in the title. No strategy deck hedging.
3 practical things. 1. Measure yourself honestly. Put the platform numbers on the same dashboard as the overnights, because your competitor is not the channel next door on the grid, it is the feed. And if under 25s are a rounding error in your reporting, you are navigating with a chart of a coastline that no longer exists. 2. Treat formats as liquid. Every commission should be able to answer what it is as a vertical, as a clip, as a podcast, as a full episode on the open platform, decided in the room where it is greenlit, not bolted on by marketing. 3. Make the machine your production tool before it becomes your replacement, and pair the falling cost curve with the one thing the slop channels cannot manufacture, which is accountability.
And the answer, what is broadcast now?
The list is dead, and the word is fine. That is my answer. Print, outdoor, cinema, radio, television. That list described delivery mechanisms, and delivery mechanisms were always temporary. I have personally decommissioned half of the ones I trained on. But the act the word describes, reaching many people at once, in public, with your name on the output, that act is bigger than it has ever been. A creator with 600 million subscribers is broadcasting. A quiz show reaching millions on an open platform is broadcasting. Arguably, my colleague was right, and the TikTok generation is the biggest broadcast audience in history. They just receive it one feed at a time. What is not broadcasting is the anonymous synthetic flood, however many views it gets, because nobody stands behind it. So if you work in this industry, stop defending the mediums. They were never the job. The job was being worth receiving and putting your name on it. That job is still open. It just no longer comes with a tower.
Thanks for listening to Reinventing Broadcast. Subscribe for more on AI content and the future of media. And visit ancast.tv for more info on Ben himself, the resources, other content, and news.